Hello guys, welcome back to Pause. Adam here, and this is part 2 from our World Tour theme park using the Planet Coaster World Fair Pack that was released a few days ago. So in the first episode we put together this sort of entrance plaza, put in a couple of utility buildings, the ticket booth, some toilets, cash machines, and a lot of planters, benches, bins, and a bit of lighting. We've made a start on this little plaza at the end of the entrance hub towards the lake, and that's what we're going to sort of finish off in the first part of this episode today. And then the sort of main bulk of today's time lapse is putting in the start of the first of our countries. So we are branching out towards the left from this view here, and we're heading along that way to begin our world tour. And the first country that we are putting in, and which you'll see today, is the United States of America. So that is the very first country that we are going to come to on the left. We are putting mainly the foundations for the area today, just sort of putting out the pathways to sort of space it out and to make it just to give me basics to work with, basically. So that's what we've put in today: the pathways, some planters, and also put in the very first building and the restaurant for the American area. And it's very much inspired by the main, I don't know if it's meant to be a courthouse or something like that, but the main building that is in the Epcot Pavilion, for the American Pavilion at Epcot, is what we've taken a lot of inspiration from. I'm not amazing on my time periods and sort of architecture and stuff, but I get a feeling it's like a colonial style building, and that's what we go for. We use it as a restaurant, so I do put in some of the brand new restaurants that are been added in 1.8. They work pretty much the same as hotels, so basically a box which you can stick other boxes onto, but these restaurants do give you more options of what food and stuff they can serve, and you can actually pick throughout the brands across the whole game to serve food from, and the different perks like live entertainment and that kind of thing. So what I've done is put 2 restaurants in, one of which is a sort of American food style burgers, chips, hot dogs, ribs, with live music, and then next door to that I've put in a bit more of a sort of contemporary menu with more of an adult feel. I know you can't really theme them up because the way they've implemented these restaurants, it is literally just a box, but in a real park, that is how I envision it. That one of them will be like a quick service restaurant, like I say, serving burgers and things, and the other one would be a bit more of an expensive kind of table service restaurant, and that's the idea behind it. But I'll talk more about that as we get to that in the video. But basically here at the moment I'm just finishing off these little planters. Again, I really wanted to make the area look really pretty, really nice, and sort of quite grand in a way, and the way we're going to establish that in this entrance plaza is through these planters and the fountains and little sort of odd bits and pieces here and there. Like you see that little fountain at the end, it's nothing spectacular, but it does look quite nice at the end, just before you get to the sort of lake at the end of the pathway. Using very similar trees in these N2 planters. They're not identical. I don't want everything to be symmetrical to that kind of level, but I do want them to be sort of a thread that runs through the area. I sort of touched on it last time. The entrance area is going to use a lot of random bushes and trees to bring sort of all the cultures together in this hub, and then each specific area I'm going to sort of try and tailor the flora and fauna to that particular geographical location the best I can. I mean, my knowledge isn't the best on that kind of thing, but I'm going to try my best. Again, looking up reference images. I did look up quite a few for this build today, but like I said, the building that you are about to see me start to tackle in a few minutes is very much inspired by that existing building in Epcot, but don't think every single area of this park is going to be a carbon copy of Epcot. It's absolutely not. It's just this very first one, because it's a staple building that I think most people will recognise it just from watching this video. If you've been to Epcot or seen pictures, I think you'll recognise the building that I'm talking about, but you'll see that in a few minutes. The other thing that I'm just starting before we move on to America, I just wanted to put in some little pavilions or some little roofed areas. Eventually I'm probably going to turn these into maybe like a little snack kiosk or like a small gift shop, something like that. As I did have the idea of putting a main gift shop in this area, but I think what I'm going to do, I don't know if they're going to be usable in the game, because they're a bit fiddly to put in. Maybe some vending machines, but generally I think one of them will be like a little food outlet. So if this was a real park, you would serve maybe popcorn, turkey legs, something like that, just something little, coffees and that kind of thing. And then the other one will probably be a very small little sort of kiosk selling random memorabilia just from the area of the park. But we'll move back onto them later on. So here I'm just putting in the sort of start of my pathways, and this is where we begin our building. So like I said, this is heavily inspired by a building at Epcot, which is also inspired by real life buildings, so it makes sense to utilise that the best I can. And yeah, you're looking at again about 2.5 to 3 hours worth of build in this time lapse today. And that's the sort of angle I'm going to try and go for the rest of this series, because a lot of the builds that I've done in the past, I've done a kind of maybe hour and a half here and there, and then sort of thrown that into a time lapse, and I don't think it really gives enough scope for what I'm trying to accomplish. So they're going to be a little bit longer time lapses in this series. I'm going to aim for maybe 2.5 to 3 hours each time, so it's a good bulk of content. My initial plan was to finish off an entire country within one episode, but I think that's too ambitious. I mean, if I want to actually really take my time and do this properly, it's going to take a lot longer than that. So I'm not going to put a number on it, but I would imagine each country is probably going to take 2, 3, 4 episodes depending on the country, and then again some of them obviously are going to contain rides, as well as sort of show venues and things like that. So it's not just going to be building. I do want to sort of incorporate a lot more rides into this park than that you would find in the World Showcase at Epcot. So it's, like I say, it's not a recreation at all. It's my own take and interpretation of it. In terms of this American area, I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to put a ride in here or not. If it is going to be a ride, it's probably going to be some kind of flat ride or something like that. Just something little, just sort of off to one corner. I don't think there's going to be a main ride here. The main reason why I say that is mainly due to location. With it being the first area you get to around the tour, I don't really want to put a massive ride right near the entrance. So I think I'll save that for a bit sort of later on in the build. Now, when I say main rides, the things that I'm sort of planning is definitely going to be some kind of boat ride, probably indoors, sort of a Pirates of the Caribbean, Maelstrom, Frozen-esque kind of boat ride. I'm not sure which country we do it. Initially I'm thinking maybe China, because I think I could do quite a nice themed boat ride in China. So I've got a feeling that's probably what I'm going to do with that one. But like I've said in the previous episode, let me know if you've got any thoughts or any ideas for stuff like that. But initially I'm thinking boat ride in China. I think that'll be quite nice, because we've got quite a lot of pieces in that. And we can sort of, I think we can really do it some justice. There's probably going to be some kind of coaster in this park. Whether it's indoors or outdoors, I'm not sure yet. The main thing I don't want to do is ruin sightlines, so I don't want there to be massive sort of structures all over the place, like glaring coaster track to detract from the sort of view of the buildings. But we'll see. I mean, maybe even if we put a little junior coaster in the back of an area behind some buildings or something, we could potentially do that. But there's definitely going to be some kind of coaster in this park. Maybe 1 or 2, depending on how we get going. And like I said, a couple of flat rides. I'm definitely going to be using the brand new People Mover. I think it's called the Polarity. That's 100% going in. Not each area. I mean, maybe half of the countries will probably have a station themed up nicely for that. It would be silly to have every country have a station. That would just be really foolish. But I think most of them will. Now, but quickly back to the building I'm doing here. As you've probably seen from the sign, the building is inspired from the American Adventure, which is a big building within the Epcot World Showcase. I think it houses... I don't know actually. I don't think I've ever been in it. I don't know if it's a show or maybe like a museum type walkthrough thing. I know there is an area where there's a sort of a stage where they have bands on. I think that's sort of behind this building. But I'm not 100%. I don't actually know what it houses. But this is where I've taken my inspiration from, this building. It's not like a one-to-one scale recreation or anything like that. It's just general style, height and that kind of things is what I've sort of taken inspiration from. Again, putting my own spin and own twist on things to make it look a little bit nicer. Originally this was going to just be a set piece, but then I thought, well, no, I might as well. It's a big building, so let's utilise it, and that's when I put in the restaurants. So that's what we do in a second. Again, using these planters around the edge. I really like these planters. I think they look really nice. So you're going to see a lot of them in this park. But I think that is the sort of thread that ties it all together. Adding a few little trees to the front, bushes. Again, we do cap the whole side off in a moment. One thing that you are going to see a lot of in this park is you utilising berms. Now, this is something that Disney parks do use quite a lot. A couple of weeks ago, I actually spent a week in Disneyland Paris, and I've been there loads of times. I mean, it must be 5, 6, 7 times. So I've sort of done all the rides, so I don't go anymore to just ride. This time I found myself just spending a lot of time just looking around the other details that they have. One of the main things that I noticed is they don't really have every area of the park fenced off. Whenever I do a build in Planet Coaster, every single pathway is got a fence next to it to stop guests moving between areas we don't want them to. But it's not as common as you think in Disney parks. Like I said, they utilise these berms. It's basically like a raised up area of the ground with flowers, plants, trees, rocks, that kind of thing in it, which acts as the barrier to the area, and it works really well. So that's something I'm gonna start utilising in this build. Pardon me. Because like I say, it works really well, and like I say, it makes it look a lot more natural in the areas because you haven't got big fences in the way. And it really shows a bit of thought that's gone into the areas. So that's why I've sort of put in the pathways first here, to sort of see where I want the berms to be and the barriers to be. And we're using a lot of these trees, and we're going to put in some bushes. And I think it looks a lot more natural towards the end. And you'll see in the sort of slow-mo shots at the end of the video, it looks really nice. So that's a good tip that I have taken from real-life Disney parks. And that's definitely something we're going to move forward with in this build. Like I say, a lot of this is going to be open space. I don't want it to feel all sort of entrapped and close, and that's the thing I tend to do in parks on Planet Coaster, is make everything really close together. So I really want this to feel massive, this park, because we've got a lot of space to work with, so we might as well use it. So there's going to be a lot of sort of empty space, but what I'm doing that is utilise these flower areas and trees to make it look a little bit nicer. And so here I was trying to figure out what to do with the entrance to the building, because I didn't want it to just be a door that was closed to go into the restaurant, but you'll see what I do in a minute. So here I'll talk briefly about these restaurants, and like I said, they work pretty much the same as hotels. The implementation of it it's fine, but it's not what I would have chosen. I mean, if I could pick a way to do restaurants, I feel they should have just had a system like picnic benches that you could link to a shop. So you've actually got a little kiosk, and then you can just tell that kiosk which benches are corresponding to that. And I think that would work better, even if you just had a generic shop that you could pick the food to sell on it. So pretty much how they've done with these restaurants, so that you can pick pretty much any brand you want, but just have it as one of the little counters. I think that would work so much better. But anyway, we've got it. That's where we are. There's no point dwelling about it. So yeah, like I said, I've put 2 different ones inside. So technically, it's 2 restaurants. In the real world, like I said before, one would be a sort of quick service. The other one would be more of a table service. Just to give these sort of options in the area. I'm not going to do that in all these countries. So some of them will be separated. It's just because this is such a big building, it made sense. But I am going to do a lot of sort of interiors as well in this build, so I don't think they're all going to be just boxes and facades. I am going to do some actual indoor pavilions in most of these builds, and don't get me wrong, this is the only building we've done so far in the American area. There's going to be a lot more buildings in this American area, so there's going to be other shops and restaurants and cafes and bars and that kind of thing. Each area is probably going to have 4 to 5 different buildings, so this is just the beginning, and that's why I've left a lot of empty space. And there's going to be some more sort of on the other side as well, where you can see the land just sort of opposite this building that we've done. Now here, I just wanted to put a little bit of lighting in. What I'm going to do as another sort of thread throughout the park is utilise those brand new lampposts with the signs on them on the main pathways. So across each of the areas in the main path through the area, those signs, those lampposts are going to be used with the country written on them, and also the colours are going to be tweaked to sort of suit that area. So that's going to be a common thread that runs throughout the park. So at least then we've got a bit of like a common theme going through everywhere, and I think that'll work quite nicely. A bit of lighting, like I said, I do want to try and get all the lighting in as we go, and I think it turns out quite nice. Very sort of standard lighting. I mean, I'm lit up from below, uplit the building, and just put a few little spots just to pinpoint a few of the details, like the American flag and the signs, and like I say, the main points of the building. And I think it turns out quite nicely. So that's generally about it for today's episode, guys. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Here's a few little slow-mo shots of the build today. So yeah, thank you ever so much, guys. If you've got any suggestions or questions or anything like that, drop them down below. Don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe if you want to stay up to date with all of the content. I'll be back in a couple of days and we'll carry on with this American area. So for now, guys, thank you ever so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, bye.